She stood near the window with her sleeves rolled to her elbows, sunlight on her arms, trying to pretend she wasn't out of breath from pushing the furniture alone. Her hair wasn't perfect. A few strands had slipped loose and rested against her cheek, and for some reason that small imperfection made it hard for me to speak. "You came fast," she said. "I live 2 floors down." I answered a little too quickly. She laughed under her breath and looked away like she hadn't meant to sound pleased. The room was quiet in that strange way rooms get when 2 people are too aware of each other. The blinds were half open, throwing soft lines of light across the sofa she had tilted awkwardly at an angle. It didn't look that heavy, but she still pressed a hand against her lower back as if steadying herself. "You're sure you don't mind?" she asked. "I don't," I said. "Really?" She nodded, though she didn't move. Instead, she rested her fingers on the corner of the couch, brushing the fabric in slow circles while watching me from the side. I pretended not to notice, but the pause stretched long enough that I could hear the faint hum of her fridge, her quiet breathing, the soft click of the clock on the wall. When I stepped toward her, she shifted to give me space, but not much. Her shoulder nearly touched mine. I reached down to grip the side of the sofa, and she reached at the same time. Our hands brushed. Not a full touch, just the slip of her knuckles against my thumb, warm and quick. She didn't pull back right away, and I didn't either. "Sorry," she murmured. "It's fine," I said, though my voice came out low. We lifted the couch together. She was stronger than she looked. The strain tightened the muscles in her arms, and she pressed her lips together with a focus that made it hard for me not to look directly at her. She caught me once. Her eyes flicked up, meeting mine for a second too long. We both looked away at the same moment, like we had agreed to ignore whatever that was. "Where do you want it?" I asked. "Just over there, against the wall." But she hesitated again before moving. A tiny pause, something she didn't voice. Only when I took a step did she follow. We set the sofa down. She exhaled, pushing her hair behind her ear with a hand that trembled slightly. Maybe from the weight, maybe not. I couldn't tell. She leaned on the back of the couch for balance, and her fingers grazed mine again, softer this time. Intentional? Maybe. Maybe not. The room felt warmer by the second. "You're really helpful," she said, but her tone dipped halfway through the sentence like she wasn't sure if she should say more. I opened my mouth to reply, but the words tangled. Instead, I asked, "Do you need anything else moved?" Her gaze lowered to my hand, still resting on the couch beside hers. She didn't step away. She didn't say yes or no. She just stood there, close enough that I could feel the faint brush of her breath on my arm, trying to decide something silently. Then, from the hallway, a sharp knock cut through the room. She straightened. I froze. The spell broke, but only on the surface. She looked at me one more time, eyes uncertain, almost apologetic, as the knocking came again, louder this time. "Stay here," she whispered, and she moved toward the door, leaving the air between us charged and unfinished. The knocking stopped after she spoke to whoever stood in the hall, but she stayed out there longer than needed. I heard low voices, a quick apology, the scrape of something pass through the doorway. When she finally closed the door, she pressed her back to it for a second, as if steadying herself. Then she caught me looking and straightened like nothing had happened. "Just a delivery," she said. Her tone was light, but she didn't walk back right away. She stayed near the doorframe, fingers tapping once against the wood before she forced herself into motion. I nodded, thought it might have been something else, such as... She lifted an eyebrow. I shook my head. Nothing. It wasn't nothing. Even before the knocking, I had sensed something held tight beneath her calm. She carried a quiet care in the way she moved, but there was also a small distance, like she had learned not to expect anyone to stay. I had seen hints of it before, in the way she paused before asking for help, as if waiting for someone to tell her she was asking too much. She walked past me to adjust a stack of books on the coffee table. Her fingertips lingered longer than needed on the top cover, tracing the edge. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was habit. "I used to move everything alone," she said. "Got good at pretending furniture isn't heavy. You still don't have to do that." She looked up, caught off guard by the softness in my voice. "You're young. You shouldn't spend your time helping someone like me." I stepped closer, slower than I meant to. "What does that mean?" Her laugh was quiet, but not amused. I'm twice divorced. I work too much. I talk to myself when I'm tired. I forget where I put things. People my age don't usually. Her sentence faded, lost somewhere in the air between us. I waited, but she didn't finish it. I don't mind helping, I said. She kept her eyes on the books, as if they might answer for her. You remind me that people can still be kind. A small confession. Nothing dramatic. But it cracked something open. She brushed dust from one corner of the table, though it was already clean. Her hand trembled a little. I wanted to ask what her divorces were like or why she hesitated when she smiled, but I stayed quiet. She seemed more honest during silence anyway. When she finally turned to me, she stood closer than before. Her shoulder brushed my arm lightly, almost cautious. She didn't move away. Instead, she looked at the space where our arms touched, then up at me, her breath catching the edge of my neck. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. I would have, I replied. Her lips parted as if she wanted to respond, but words didn't come. Instead, she reached to adjust my collar, a tiny, unnecessary gesture. Her fingers drifted against my skin before she realized what she was doing. She pulled her hand back too fast, eyes widening. Sorry, she whispered. I caught her hand gently before she could take another step away. Just for a second, long enough for her pulse to jump beneath my fingers. Long enough for her to meet my eyes with something unguarded. She didn't speak. I didn't either. But neither of us let go right away. The moment stretched too long. She noticed it first. Her fingers slipped from mine, not abruptly, just slow enough to show she almost didn't want to pull away. She stepped back, smoothing her shirt like she needed something to do with her hands. Before either of us could say anything, her phone buzzed on the counter, loud in the quiet room. She froze. I looked at the screen lighting up behind her. A name flashed. Someone I didn't know. She didn't reach for it. Instead, she whispered, almost to herself, not now. But she lifted the phone anyway. Her jaw tightened as she read the message. She angled the screen away without thinking, like she was trying to protect the small bubble between us. Everything all right? I asked. She nodded too quickly. Just work. Except the way she set the phone face down said it wasn't. She walked past me, a little faster than she needed to, pretending to adjust the curtains. The sunlight caught the edge of her cheek, and for a moment she looked younger, or maybe just less guarded. You don't have to hide things from me, I said quietly. She flinched at the gentleness. It's not hiding. It's only, she stopped again, losing the thread. I don't want to make things complicated. The air shifted. Complicated. That word hung between us like something we had both been avoiding. I live downstairs, I said. Not exactly complicated. She let out a soft breath, almost a laugh, but there was worry in it. People talk in buildings like this. The implication hit harder than she probably meant it to. Age, neighbors, gossip, lines we weren't supposed to cross. I stepped closer without planning to. She noticed, but didn't move. Her hand brushed the curtain, but she didn't let go, like it was the last thing keeping her from turning fully toward me. You're allowed to have help, I said. That's not what they would think. She said it quietly, eyes on the floor, a small truth wrought around the edges. I wanted to say it didn't matter. She looked up before I could. You don't understand, she whispered. I've already been talked about enough in my life. I didn't answer right away. I just moved to stand beside her, close enough that our arms nearly touched. Close enough that we both became still at the same moment. A key rattled outside the door. She stiffened. I felt the shift in her shoulder. Footsteps passed. Someone spoke faintly to a neighbor. For a second, she leaned toward me. Instinct or fear or something in between. The footsteps faded down the hall, but she didn't step away yet. I shouldn't be this close to you, she murmured. But you are, I said. Her breath caught. Her eyes lifted to mine, slow and uncertain. She tilted her head a little, like she was trying to read something she wasn't sure she was allowed to see. I raised my hand without thinking, brushing a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. My fingers barely grazed her skin. She inhaled sharply, but she didn't move away. Her hand came up as if she might touch my chest, then hesitated mid-air. She dropped it, but the pause stayed heavy between us. We can't, she whispered, though her body didn't agree with her voice. I stepped closer anyway, drawn in by the quiet break in her resolve. She didn't retreat, not even half a step. We stood inches apart, both resisting something neither of us fully wanted to resist. She was the one who stepped back first, but only because she had to. Her breath had turned unsteady, and she seemed almost startled by the sound of her own heartbeat. She pressed a hand to the edge of the sofa, as if grounding herself. "You can't look at me like that," she said quietly. "I'm not looking at you any special way." She stared at me, knowing that was a lie. "You are, and I'm trying very hard not to." She stopped. Her voice caught on something she didn't want to say out loud. I moved a little closer, not touching, just close enough that she could feel the warmth from my body. Close enough that she knew I wasn't backing away. "What are you trying not to do?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. She turned her head slightly, avoiding my eyes. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "I'm just standing here. That's the problem." A short, brittle sound left her throat, something between a laugh and a breath she didn't finish. She didn't walk away, though. She stayed by the sofa, fingers curling around the fabric. "Tell me," I said, softer now. "If you really want me to leave, say it." She lifted her face slowly. Her eyes softened, then sharpened again, fighting themselves. "Don't push me." "I'm not." "You are," she whispered. "You don't see what you're doing." I swallowed. She wasn't wrong. I kept inching into the spaces she left open. The spaces she shouldn't have left open at all. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. This time she didn't even glance at the screen. Instead, she stepped toward me. One careful step, like her body moved before she agreed to it. Her hand brushed my arm, faint as a whisper. Her fingers didn't retreat. They curled near the inside of my elbow, holding on just enough to pull the truth out of her. "I think about you," she said, voice thin. "More than I should." The room tightened around us. Every sound seemed too loud. Her breathing, my pulse, the soft shift of fabric as she leaned closer. I touched her wrist lightly. "Then why pretend you don't?" "Because you're young," she said. "Because I've made bad choices before. Because I don't want people asking why a boy like you spends time with a woman who already has a whole past behind her. I'm not a boy." Her eyes flicked up. Something inside them cracked, letting the truth slip through. She stepped close enough that the front of her shirt brushed my chest. Her breath hit my collarbone, warm and careful. "You're making this impossible," she whispered. I raised my hand and brushed her hair back from her face, slower than I needed to. My fingertips grazed her cheekbone, and she closed her eyes, just for a moment, like she was memorizing the touch. When she opened them again, she was inches from me, too close to pretend anymore. She lifted her hand to my chest, letting it rest there. Not pushing me away, not pulling me closer, just resting, trembling slightly. "Tell me I'm imagining this," she said. "Tell me you don't want—" "I do," I said before she could finish. Her breath hitched. The space between us disappeared by half. She leaned in, just enough that her forehead touched mine. Her lips brushed the air near my mouth. Then, a sharp knock at her door. Not tentative, not patient. She froze. The warmth between us held for one fragile second longer. And then everything hung by a thread, one heartbeat away from breaking. The knock didn't stop. 3 sharp hits, then another, impatient like whoever stood outside already knew they were interrupting something. She took a step back, breath caught halfway in her throat. I reached for her instinctively, but she shook her head, barely noticeable, eyes wide in a way that didn't match any expression I'd seen from her before. "I should get it," she whispered. Her voice wavered, not with guilt, with dread. I watched her walk to the door, each step slower than the one before. She hesitated, hand hovering over the handle. When she finally opened it, she kept her body angled, blocking the view inside. A man's voice slid into the room, low and edged. "You didn't answer your phone." She stiffened. I saw her fingers grip the doorframe, turning her knuckles pale. "It wasn't urgent," she said. "It was," he snapped quietly. "You forgot the meeting." Again, her shoulders folded inward a little. Not fear, something heavier. A history I hadn't been told. "I told you I needed space," she murmured. "And I told you space doesn't mean avoiding responsibilities," he said. Their voices dropped to a tense murmur. I stayed behind the sofa, pulse hammering through me. I caught pieces. "You shouldn't be alone. You said you didn't need me anymore." "That's not what I meant." This is exactly what you meant. She stepped back sharply, and for a moment I thought the man would follow her inside. But he didn't. He stared past her shoulder. His eyes locked on me. Silence knifed through the room. He looked at her again. So that's why. Her breath stuttered. Don't do this. You always said you weren't ready, he said, voice softer now, like he was piecing something together that hurt. Now I see why. She closed her eyes, just for a second. But that second cracked everything open. He stepped back, his tone shifting into something colder. We'll talk later. When she shut the door, she leaned against it with her hand pressed over her stomach, like the air had been knocked out of her. She didn't speak, didn't move. I came closer, slow, careful. Who was he? Her eyes opened, glossy but not crying. She shook her head once. Someone who doesn't get to ask questions anymore. I waited. The silence stretched. She finally whispered, he's my ex. Not recent enough to matter, but not distant enough to be harmless. Her voice broke a little on the last word. She pushed off the door and walked past me, brushing my shoulder on the way. The contact sent a warm jolt up my arm, even though she moved too fast for it to be intentional. He thinks I can't handle life alone, she said. He thinks I make bad choices when I'm lonely. I stepped closer. Helping you isn't a bad choice. She laughed under her breath. A tired, fragile sound. You don't know what it looks like from the outside. Then tell me, I said. My voice came out lower, closer to her ear than I expected. She turned to me. Her eyes searched mine with a new kind of intensity, something raw and cornered. You're 20 years younger, she said. If anyone finds out, they won't think this is mutual. They'll think I'm pulling you into something you don't understand. I'm right here, I said, and I understand more than you think. Her breath hitched. She stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that I felt heat radiate from her. Close enough to see the slight tremble in her hand as she reached for the edge of my shirt, then hesitated, fingers curling into her palm. I shouldn't want this, she whispered. But you do. She didn't deny it. Instead, she stepped into me, chest brushing mine through the smallest gap of space. Her forehead touched my chin for a second, the kind of second that rewrites everything. Then she pulled back just an inch, voice shaking. Tell me to stop, she said. Because if you don't, I won't. She waited in that thin space between us, trembling just enough to show she was at the edge of something she couldn't take back. My breath mixed with hers. Her fingers hovered near my shirt, caught between wanting and retreating. Tell me to stop, she whispered again. Please, just say it. I couldn't. Her shoulders rose on a shaky inhale. She looked at my mouth for half a second before catching herself and turning her head away, pressing her palm flat against the side of the sofa as if holding herself upright. This is a mistake, she said, but her voice wasn't sure. You're too young. I'm too. Her words faltered when I stepped closer, closing the last few inches she had tried to create. You're you, I said. That's the only part one can't walk away from. Her breath stilled. Her hand tightened on the sofa fabric, pulling it slightly, like she needed something to anchor her. I placed my hand gently over hers, easing her grip. She didn't pull away. She let her fingers open beneath mine, warm and hesitant. You don't see the risk, she murmured. I see you. That's not the same. She turned toward me again, slow and careful. Her face was close enough that a tilt of her head would bring her lips to mine. I felt her breath on my cheek, light and unsteady. Her eyes searched mine like she expected regret waiting there. I don't want to ruin your life, she said. Or mine. You won't. You can't promise that. I'm not promising anything. I swallowed. I'm choosing. The words stopped her. Her lips parted slightly, her breath catching. She leaned forward just a fraction, as if her body moved before her mind could argue. You don't know what you're choosing, she whispered. Then show me. Her eyes softened, not with certainty, but with surrender. Her forehead touched my chest for a brief moment, the weight of her leaning into me like she had finally let something drop. I wrapped an arm around her lightly, giving her just enough pressure to feel held without trapping her. She stayed there, quiet, her fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt. When she lifted her head again, her face was inches from mine. She raised her hand slowly, brushing her thumb along my jaw in a hesitant line that made my breath shake. "I was afraid you'd say that," she said. "Why?" "Because now I don't know how to step back." She didn't try to. Not anymore. Her body moved toward me, gentle at first, then with the kind of resolve she'd been fighting for too long. She rested both hands on my chest, sliding one up toward my shoulder. The touch was steady now. Sure, her eyes didn't look away. I lifted my hand to her cheek. She leaned into it, a small, unguarded movement that told me everything she hadn't said. "This is real," she whispered. "Isn't it?" "It is." The air pressed tight around us, full of shared breath and quiet understanding. No space left for pretending. She rose slightly onto her toes, closing the last sliver of distance until her lips hovered near mine, close enough that I felt the warmth of her whisper. "Then don't let go." Her words were the choice, the breaking point, the answer to everything we'd been circling. And in that moment, neither of us did. For a long moment, she just stayed there with her lips hovering close to mine, her breath warm, her hand steady on my chest. The tension that had held us tight for hours finally loosened, not disappearing, just shifting into something softer, something real. She pulled back just enough to look at me fully. Her eyes weren't uncertain anymore, just tired in the way people get when they finally stop running from themselves. "I'm scared," she admitted. No whisper this time, just truth. "I know," I said. "Me too." She let out a shaky breath, but there was relief in it, like finally naming the fear made room for everything else. She slid her fingers down my arm until her hand found mine, weaving our fingers together slowly, almost testing if I'd pull away. I didn't. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles, soft and lingering. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "Not some fantasy version of us. Not pretending the difference between us isn't going to get messy." "I'm not pretending," I said. "And I'm not here because you need fixing, or because I'm confused. I'm here because I haven't stopped thinking about you since the first time you said hello in the hallway." Her breath caught. She pressed her forehead lightly against my chin again, the way she had before, but this time she let herself rest there longer. Her hands came to my waist, steady, warm. I wrapped my arms around her in return, feeling her relax into the hold inch by inch. "You're going to make my neighbors talk," she murmured, voice muffled against my shirt. "Let them," I said. She laughed softly, a real laugh, and the sound loosened something in both of us. She leaned back to look at me again, eyes searching my face like she was memorizing lines she hadn't allowed herself to study before. "I didn't think anyone would ever choose me again," she said. "Not fully. Not without strings. I'm not here out of charity," I said. "You know that." She nodded. "Ido. That's what scares me most." I lifted her chin gently with my fingers. "You don't have to rush anything. We're just here, together. We'll figure the rest out." Her shoulders slumped with quiet relief. She leaned into me again, fitting against me like she had been holding herself rigid for years, and finally let go. I pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, slow and careful, feeling her breathe out against my collarbone. She didn't move away. Instead, she guided me toward the sofa we had moved earlier, tugging lightly at my hand. We sat close, our legs almost touching at first, then fully. Her hand found mine again, more sure this time, fingers interlocking without hesitation. She rested her head on my shoulder, and I felt her smile against my shirt. A small, honest smile. "I think we just complicated everything," she said. "Probably. You okay with that?" I turned slightly, brushing my cheek against her hair. "Yeah, I am." She squeezed my hand once, gentle but certain. The room felt warm, steady, lived in. Not perfect, not simple, just right. For the first time that day, neither of us pulled away. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?